Hello, everyone. A bit of a change of tact for me this time, but we've got a bit of a worlds collide for those that follow my YouTube channel. For this episode, we're going to be previewing Euro 2020 or Euro 2021, depending on what you want to call it. And I've got an array of guests lined up to talk all different things, from the England squad to Scotland to Wales to all the other nations. And as I said, it's Worlds Collide, representing the Swindon Town vlog for the moment. Warren's joining me. Hello, pal.
Evening, mate. How are we doing?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much for your time this evening. And from the world of CM0102, I have Steve and Jamie. How are you, boys?
Yeah, good, Ta.
I'm good, mate. Thanks. I'm going to enjoy this.
It's worth noting this is going to go out the day Gareth Southgate announces his 26, but we are recording the night before on the bank holiday Monday. So anything that happens before or after that, obviously we can't comment on at this stage. Lads, if we can, we'll jump straight in with the England squad. Obviously, Gareth decided to name 33, I believe it was, as in a provisional squad, which is not his usual tact, but it does mean 7 are going to miss out when he announces it tomorrow. If we can start with the goalkeepers, and Warren, I'll come to you first. Henderson, Pickford, Johnston and Ramsdale. You can imagine only 3 of those are going to make it. Is it set in stone, do you think, that Pickford is going in as number 1?
I think so. I just think Southgate is always like Pickford. And whether he plays bad for Everton or whether he plays good, when you look at the list of the 4 names there, there's not one that I feel that's going to get ahead of Pickford. The only one that's really played consistently for his club is, you know what I mean, Henderson's been in and out of the United team. Sam Johnston's been playing regularly for West Brom, and Ramsdale's played for Sheffield United. But I just still can't see, with the philosophy that Southgate has, he loves a keeper that can distribute the ball. And I only feel that out of those 4, that Pickford's probably the best one at that. Whether he's the best goalkeeper overall is there to be chucked about. But in my opinion, I just think Southgate, he'll go for the solid option that he knows, that's tried and trusted, and it'll be Jordan Pickford.
You've raised 2 interesting points there that I've noted down on the goalkeepers. And I'm going to ask the boys this as well. Steve, obviously, Pickford is described as the best ball-playing goalkeeper, but when you watch it, it might just be me, but a lot of his kicking generally goes out for a throw-in my opinion. Is it a myth that his distribution is the best?
It might well be, but you don't see from the other 3 the amount of actual passes to a level that he tries further up the field that actually hit as well. For me personally, I genuinely don't think as a goalkeeper, I don't think he's the best. I think Henderson will be at some point, but for me, I know it's hard with relegated teams. I genuinely believe out of a lot of them, I think Sam Johnston is the best keeper. That's why there's talk of him getting moves, etc. Now they've gone down. But yeah, has he put them foot wrong for England that he's done for Everton from time to time? Probably not, which probably keeps him in there because he's not made them level of mistakes for England that he has for Everton. And I think that's where Southgate, he puts his trust in lads that perform for him. And I genuinely believe he'll pick on players that have played well for him and England as well, as opposed to concentrating just on club form.
And Jamie, I know you're not going to be too fussed with regards to who gets in and who doesn't in terms of the England squad, but as someone who supports a club who, despite their troubles, do have a knack of finding good goalkeepers, do you think it's a big loss for England that Pope couldn't make the squad?
Yeah, I think Pope's the only one could have challenged Pickford, to be honest. The other 3, you know, Henderson's been decent, but the other 2, especially Ramsdale, I'm not quite sure how he's got anywhere near. I think he's been, I know Sheffield United have been poor, but I think he's been absolutely atrocious in the games that I've watched. And I think they would have been better off maybe bringing a young keeper from the under-21s, someone like a Freddie Woodman, who's been with Swans, who's been outstanding, you know, won the Golden Glove in the Championship, because Aaron Ramsdale is just atrocious. Going back to Pickford, I think he's an extremely poor keeper. But the argument that you say in about obviously ball playing with his feet, the only other keeper probably is Nick Pope, who unfortunately is an absolute calamity at his feet. Great shot stopper, great keeper. But if you're talking about playing and playing from the back, every time the ball goes back to him when you watch Burnley and he tries to play, I just think, oh, something's coming here, because he is absolutely atrocious with his feet. But, you know, in terms of goalkeeping, I think he's a fantastic keeper. But if you want to try and play and build from the back, Nick Pope is not the answer. So in terms of the rest, yeah, Pickford is probably, you know, well above the rest in terms of that.
And it's interesting, it'll be a recurring theme, I think, with some of the players in the 33. Henderson's only really been playing for Man United the second half of the season. Now, arguably, he's better with his feet than Pope, and he's not too dissimilar to Pickford as a keeper. Is there a shout he could yet steal the number one slot?
I think he's been quite poor for Man United recently. I've watched a few games and I've looked at him and I think, you know, it happens to a lot of keepers. You know, Ben Foster, for example, you know, Henderson went to Sheffield United and was outstanding. And then you go to these big clubs and it just doesn't work. Like Fabianski, kind of at Arsenal, didn't kind of work, went to Swansea, was unbelievable. And I think the same thing's happening with Henderson. Now he's gone back to United recently. I remember the Liverpool game, I think when Salah scored the fourth, and he looked tiny in the goals. His positioning was all over the shop. And I think you look at the cup final last week, I know he has kind of rotated, but I think Solskjaer in the game that he needed to win didn't quite trust him in that and went back to, went with David De Gea. I don't know. I feel Henderson's, not been playing too well. So I don't think there's any shadow of a doubt that Pickford's the number one quite easily.
Last question on the goalkeepers to all of you then. I imagine obviously 3 keepers will go, so 1 will miss out. So it's kind of a 2-part question. And Warren, I'll ask you first. Which of the 4 misses out on the final squad? And is goalkeeper an area of concern for England going into the tournament?
I think the one that will miss out will be Ramsdale. I agree with what Jamie said. I don't see how he's got near for me. I just don't see it. How he, comparing with the other 3, Henderson has been in and out of United, and Johnston's been, I think, really, really good for West Brom, to be fair, in a team that's got relegated. So I think Ramsdale will miss out. With regards to the keepers, I think we've got a solid bunch of keepers, to be honest with you. I don't see it as a concern. I honestly don't. I think when Pope was there, he always seemed to be the second choice. So, but looking at the other 2, I seem like there seem solid options if there was an injury to Pickford or he got a suspension in one of the games, obviously. So, no, for me, no concern. I think they're solid enough keepers and they all do a decent job for their clubs. And yeah, no issue there.
So, Steve, Warren says Ramsdale. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Ramsdale's, I don't think he's actually warranted that 18 million price tag for them paying back for him, in honesty. But like Jamie was saying as well, I don't really see it in him. But yeah, I think he's going to be one that miss out. And I mean, it's been a big area of pride for England over a hell of a lot of years, hasn't it? As goalkeepers, until back end of Seaman, really. Before the back end of Seaman, we just had a glut of very, very good goalkeepers going back. It was always a massive strong point of England's, and we just don't seem to have that level of quality all challenging each other now that we had. And I do genuinely think that goes for quite a lot of the team, although they play well together as a team, personally. But yeah, it's certainly Ramsdale. And for me personally, I just think Johnston might be the one to throw it at him and give a go, personally.
Jamie, I'm assuming from what you were saying, Ramsdale's the one that misses out for you as well?
Yeah.
No, that's pretty conclusive from you 3. It's nice to agree to begin with.
I'm sure it's not going to last long.
Let's move on to the defenders. Steve, I will start with you this time if I can. In terms of right backs, there's
this could take a while.
there's Kyle Walker, there's James, there's Trippier. I'll throw Trent in the mix as well, if you like. he's a right wing back, but it's close enough. And Southgate hasn't ruled out taking all four. Do we need to take all four, in your opinion?
No, certainly not. I think it's overloading it. Trippier's done well as Pickford has done in England shirt, to be fair. We've had as discussions, as you've seen, about Trent and his abilities. For me, I don't like the idea of Kyle Walker playing right over three centre backs, but it depends how he's going to play. Well, everybody knows how he's probably going to play, but still, for me at this present moment in time, for everything that he gives in terms of going forward and defending wise, which is a massive priority, I think, as well as in the position you're playing in a massive tournament like this, I think Kyle Walker's got to be the number one for that right back ish position.
And thankfully, we're also joined now by Mr. Greaves. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm all right, Fifey. How are you?
Yeah, very well. You've jumped in at just the right time. As someone in the CM world who's known for his defensive acumen, I just want to throw into the mix the fact that Wan-Bissaka still hasn't had a call up to the England squad. A lot of people consider him the best of the defensive right backs. Do you think it's a shame he's not at least had a call up when you think that four others have ahead of him that are all quite similar?
No, because they're all better than him. They do. I think Kyle Walker is slept on defensively. Reece James is only getting better. The young lad is an animal, and he's going to blossom into a top right back. His Champions League display proved that the other night. And if anything, Wan-Bissaka stands out in a very poor Manchester United defence. So he's not getting any really other support. He's made to look definitely good next to Lindelof. And I'm sorry, that's not hard.
Warren, Steve made an interesting point referencing conversations we've had off camera about Trent. Obviously, he missed out on the last England squad for the qualifiers or the friendlies, whatever happened a couple of months back. But he's back in now. I imagine you fully expect him to make the final 26. Do you consider him a right back option, or is he more of an attacking player for you?
I think with Trent's definitely a better player going forward, isn't he? You see that for Liverpool when he goes forward, he puts some decent balls into the box. He's very good taking on a man when he gets higher up the pitch. I think it's something that Southgate always likes. He always likes attacking fullbacks. He always has, because he always ends up playing two holding midfielders. So he expects the fullbacks to bomb on and create. So it's definitely an option. But for me, I'm with Steve. I think Kyle Walker is the most solid option. I think is going back to with the goalkeeper situation. Southgate goes for these tried and trusted players that he gets on with, and that's the way he chooses it. And like Greasy said, if there was a second choice for me from Kyle Walker, I would go Reece James all day. I think he is a player that is going to be top. And it's going to open up for him because Azpilicueta isn't going to have a long left at Chelsea now with the age that he is. And I think at that spot is just going to open up for Reece James. And I think he's just going to get better and better and better.
I think over the next few years, James is going to move into centre-half.
Yeah.
Whereas, for Chelsea, because he's played there a bit. I can see him 2 seasons playing at wing-back. And then he'll move.
He's been very rotating it, isn't he? Because he's been playing Azpilicueta there, and then he switches it like for the.
I think it's going to be interesting to see if Chelsea decide to take advantage of Inter Milan not having any money anymore. If they get Hakimi for fullback, then play Reece James centre half early, because I can see him doing that. Or are they going to go out and buy a big centre half?
I can still see though, even if he did play at centre half for Chelsea, I can still see if Southgate went with a 4, I don't think he'd have no problem with putting Reece James at right back.
I think he, like when I joined, Steve was on about a 3. I can see Southgate playing a 3 if I was Southgate, I would play with the 3 centre halves. Then Walker is on the inside.
Let's not jump ahead of the questions, Greevesy, because you know what happened at the end of the England squad. Jamie, it looks a much more conventional choice at left back. It's Shaw or Chilwell. I think both have had good seasons. I think Luke Shaw's levels have certainly improved from where they were. Is it a case of it doesn't really matter which plays because they're both in good form?
Yeah, I don't think it really matters, like you say, whichever one. I think, it'll be a 50-50, and you could ask all of us in here and we'd all probably have a different opinion. But I don't think anyone would really say it's got to be Shaw, it's got to be Chilwell, because there's not really much between them. For me, it would be Luke Shaw. I think he's had an overall great season. He's played in a back four, Man United, who have not had the best defensively, whereas Chilwell a lot of the time has played with the 3 centre halves. So he gets so much more, he can push forward a lot, knowing that he's got the 3 centre halves. He's got N'Golo Kante there, and he's got a lot more license to kind of do what he wants. Whereas Luke Shaw, I think his energy levels, I think he's been one of United's best players this season. So for me, it would just be Luke Shaw. But if it was Chilwell, you're not going to look at it and think, they're a rough one there. I think it could be either or.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick straw poll then. Warren, one word, Shaw or Chilwell?
Chilwell for me.
Steve?
Shaw.
Greavesy?
It's difficult because if we go back 4, I'd say Shaw, but if we go wing back, I'd say Chilwell.
Okay. So you were right, Jamie. No one can. It doesn't matter, and everyone will have different opinions.
Yeah.
In terms of the centre backs, and Greavesy, I'll start with you on this one. In the provisional squad, there is Stones, Maguire, Mings, Cody. I've put Godfrey in that list as well, and White. Maguire, obviously, last time we saw him on TV, is still crutches, protective boot, that kind of thing. There's a question whether he would even be fit. Is there a strong enough centre back partnership in amongst all of that, do you think?
I don't know what Tyrone Mings is doing in the squad. I think he's got dirty pictures of Southgate, because how he got in the squad ahead of Tomori, who has been outstanding for AC Milan this year, is a crime. But that's by the by. Our best partnership is Stones and Maguire, and Stones has blossomed. He's come back into form this year, which is good for England, because other than them two, I'd say the rest are meh.
Yeah.
Ben White is going to be
very good.
If he carries on the way he's playing, he will be elite in 2 years. But that's 2 years' time. And
this is being recorded on speaker views, but I've got gallery view up as well, and I can see Steve was nodding along there. Do you think Ben White might just make it for the experience more than actually playing?
You get emotional now, Steve.
Each year we bloody do that, don't we? Why? I don't know why we do it. We call up these players to give them the experience of being training. They're professional footballers. They should know what it's like to train in a setup. It's like when they were talking about Declan Rice and Mason Mount. Chelsea should sign him because Mason Mount is the future of Chelsea, and Declan Rice and them two have been playing in the England setups together since they were 9 years old. So them two are going to have like the fabled Manchester United class of '94 mentality, where they know what each other are going to do. So you've got the more elements you've got that in a team, it makes sense. So it's just silly going, oh, we'll bring them along for a jolly. Well, no, pick the best 25 players that we have available. If someone's carrying an injury, leave them at home. Never works out. We've got to be ruthless and just bin off the people that aren't fit and keep the ones that are, even if it's Harry Kane.
So, Steve, to bring you in then, 2 players that Greavesy spoke about there. Tyrone Mings, he said, isn't good enough. I'd like to know if you agree with that. And in terms of Ben White, can you see him getting a place, or will he be one of the ones that gets dropped?
Yeah, ultimately, at this present minute in time, I can see him getting dropped from it. Again, I do think he's a better defender than Tyrone Mings. I think his problem he's got at the moment, we've seen it a lot more at Brighton than his little spell with up at Leeds. He's filtered into that defensive midfield role a lot more at Brighton than he did at Leeds. It were only because Phillips were out, and bear in mind we were only playing Championship football at that point as well. But he's gone and he's done the game against us when we played against Brighton. He were running around like a madman. You know, he played very, very well at second defense.
He did. I watched that game.
And I just think that he's very young, but I think he needs to find a place, or Brighton themselves need to find a place for him to play permanently and to let him blossom properly. The problem is at Brighton, they've got Duncan Webster, and I think there's been a hell of a lot of talk of, well, if Ben White's made that squad, why isn't Dunk? But
I'm a fan of Dunk personally.
Yeah, he's been
the step up's massive though. You know, you're talking like Connor Cody. They just, it's not good enough. Do you mean? Yeah, he's done a great job at Wolves. You're talking elite, you know, when it comes to international football. These players just not good enough.
That's what I was saying about being ruthless. If you got to be ruthless. What Connor Cody has the turning circle of a small bus. He's got one ball over. If his positional play isn't good enough to carry his pace for top international level. Mbappe at the moment is dreaming of playing England against Connor Cody. He's just sitting there. Can you imagine the look on him shitting himself as Mbappe runs at him full pace? You can't.
Surely Cody will only play if we play a back three. That's his only chance of playing, isn't it? Surely.
But then it goes for a lot of them, don't it? Because you look at the centre halves, it's by far England's weak point, especially if Maguire's injured, and that's why they'll play three. Because if you tried to pick two out of that in international football, you wouldn't be able to deal with it. That's why England will play three centre halves, because they haven't got two centre halves that they trust or good enough. Even Stones and Maguire, I don't think, you know, they both had great seasons for club, but I don't think they're good enough. If you played in a back four, they just wouldn't be able to deal with it.
He left Tarkowski at home as well, hasn't he?
Yes, yeah. It was
probably him above Mings, as well as Tamori, but it's...
Mings is the left-footed option, though, and if he plays that three, I think he likes
balance.
He likes the balance. He has it covered. None of the others.
The professional footballers, if you can't kick a ball with your left foot,
but they can't. Okay, that is the point. I totally agree.
That is the bit.
The fact is, they want.
Get me on that training pitch. I'd have a stick. Kick a ball with your left foot, miss pass, crack around the back of the head with a stick, and play it again. I'm paying you 50 grand a week.
And what we were saying, if Stones and Maguire are fit and they play a back three, the chances are he'll play Walker or Reece James as the other one. He won't trust the other centre halves, like we've all been saying, and he'll play one of those.
With Walker, he's got the pace to back it up. People underestimate how quick he actually is. That's why I'd have him with Stones and Maguire. Maguire in the centre.
The other thing with that is obviously it's not his preferred position, but Luke Shaw has also played left of a free before.
But I think
nowhere near as.
And they've only got the kind of two left-sided players, haven't they? You know, you've got kind of four on the right-hand side, whereas you've got, you know, two. I personally, what he was saying earlier, would you take all four? The fact that it's now a 26-man squad, not 23, I would be taking all four of those right-hand sided players and leaving like Tyrone Mings and Connor Cody back at home, because as Warren said, but I think it's almost certain that either Kyle Walker or Reece James will play in the right-hand side of the centre half. So technically, you are only taking three of them.
But you got to think as well. If we're playing, if you start off like what I would, and you know that Gareth Southgate is as well, you start off defensively, and you have a player like Trent on the bench. So if you're playing well and dominant, like being rigid, and the game is tight, you've got a player of that quality in the final ball and the pace to come on and then penetrate. You come on and then you go right attack. Because Reece James has played in defensive midfield as well a lot. So if you need, you could move over Reece James in as another to reline up a double pivot to then put him on side.
Just before I move on to the midfielders, does anyone want to have their say on Godfrey, or are we just pretty much accepting
outstanding player?
Been one of Everton's best players
for me. I think I would be probably taking him over Tyrone Mings, Connor Cody, but I do agree. I think him and Ben White, the certain needs to drop out. Along with what I'm reading, Trent is a goner as well.
Oh, okay. Well,
So-
let's move on to the midfield. And Warren, I'll let you go first up with this one.
Don't talk about Calvin Phillips, so that's Steve's job.
Well, I was actually
He
going to
did, didn't
start
he?
the more attacking and work their way back, so Steve got it. In terms of the attacking of the central midfielders, if you like, there's Mount, there's Lingard. Now, I'll be honest, and you know, I'm happy to put my hands up when I'm wrong. I've been fairly critical. Well, no, not critical. What's the word I'm looking for? I appreciate that Mason Mount is a very good footballer. I haven't believed he is worth the hype he has been getting as like England's great saviour. But to the back end of the season, he has been performing to a very high level, including in the Champions League. Lingard's got in there on merit for what he's done on the second half of the season, but that brings back the same question we had about Henderson with the goalkeepers. Does he warrant a place for playing well for half a season? And then we've also got the one player who I did want to see, but I wasn't expecting to see, that missed out, was Maddison. And it just looks like he will never get his England chance for one reason or another. So in terms of the attacking central midfielders, Warren, do you see both Mount and Lingard going?
Mount's a shoo-in. Mount's definitely going, and Mount will start, in my opinion. I think, but yeah, he's a starter. Mount, you don't, like you say, he's been consistent for Chelsea. He's been playing to a high standard. And one for me, if we play the one pivot, and I'll let us go back to the defensive aspect, one for me that I would have in alongside Mount, if you're going to play the one in the holding role and the two in front, I love James Ward-Prowse. I think he is a top footballer. I think he set piece wise, which is massive in tournament football. We've all seen it. Set pieces are a massive part of the game. And I think James Ward-Prowse should be starting over Lingard. I think he should be, if you play that free, I think he has got to be a James Ward-Prowse, a Mount, and then the pivot, which we can go back to later, Phillips, Rice, wherever. But for me, James Ward-Prowse is one that I would love to see starting. I think alongside Mount, I think both of them, I think just because he plays for Southampton, but he plays to a high level for Southampton. He plays in a 4-4-2, which we worry sometimes about energy in the middle of our park. He gets up and down the pitch all day long. And he's got someone like Romeu who plays alongside him, who I feel is quite a lazy player. So you can see Ward-Prowse is just consistently up, down, up, down. And the quality of him, I think he should start, in my opinion.
Jamie, Warren makes a good point. And if we're bringing Ward-Prowse into the discussion, it's also worth noting Bellingham is in the squad as well, who I think people overlook. But I don't watch a lot of German football, but what I do see, he and what we've seen in the Champions League, he is coming on leaps and bounds.
Yeah, he would be a starter for me. I think he's unbelievable. I don't care, 17 or not. You know, you're talking a lot of these players, and obviously we're going to go back to the more defensive-minded players, where he kind of plays a bit for Dortmund. You know, the Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, Ward-Prowse. You know, I watch a lot of Dortmund just because Sancho is just one of my favourite players to watch in the world. And Bellingham this season, you saw the game against Man City at the Etihad. He was probably the best player on the pitch. Absolutely unbelievable. You know, talk about energy, his levels are unreal. And for me, he's not fazed by anything, and he'd be a starter for me.
And Steve, I wanted to give you the option to talk about someone you're very keen to talk about. So in terms of the defensive midfielders, if you like, Rice, in my opinion, will almost certainly go and almost certainly start. Henderson's there. He will almost certainly go. His match fitness might come into question. And Calvin Phillips, who I know you'll want to start with, I personally would take if he is anywhere close to being fit.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely, if you're running with three and he's going to start two, which we know that as much as none of us want him to start two holding midfielders, you probably get away with taking a.
I want him to start two.
Pardon?
I want him to play two.
Oh, there's a shock. There's a shock.
I'd play
The most defended-minded person we've ever met. There's a shock. I'm surprised you don't want to play 3.
I just think at times, when we're playing 2 holding, we're very boring and we're not getting the ball to our attacking threats enough sometimes. And for me, Calvin, and I'm saying this, it might not come across unbiased, but I think his passing range is a bit better than Rice's. Rice carries a team, to be fair to him, that's got somebody like Southgate who plays a similar position at side of him. So, his argument's already there. Calvin Phillips, along with Patrick Bamford, carries a team full stop. So I do think he deserves to go, whether he'll start. But in the recent games, I think he were out of the midfielders, played the most minutes out of everybody. So he's got some sort of faith in him as Southgate. I want to see him go. But as an England fan, you're happy with any 2 of, which you will do, any 2 of the 3 of them. And let's be honest, I do think the way he's come on over his career and the way position he's in now, Henderson's got to be a nailed-on starter, even if at 90% fit, because he's just got that. He's got that mentality of he's taken that team. He's done a Gerrard job in a team with better players, in my opinion, of as much as the superstars have got now, which Liverpool didn't have to an extent when they were winning Champions Leagues with Gerrard playing. He's been the glue that's held all that together. So he does have to start, in my opinion. And either or for Phillips and Rice. On a personal opinion, I'd obviously love it to be Phillips, but Rice is just, he's the future.
Rice is going to start, didn't he?
Yeah, it's future of West Ham, and how long he can stay at West Ham is there's more. For some reason, it just feels like there's more chance of Phillips staying at Leeds for the longevity as Rice as well, because he's just got that. There's something about him. I remember even watching a last match at Derry, watching it, and he was scoring a goal, and he gets far more forward in more attacking positions than Calvin does as well. So if Henderson's sitting, he's probably got that bit more to get a bit more forward and have that, whereas Calvin just sits back. So I'll be happy if Calvin goes anyway. He's in the final squad, but it's hard to argue against either of them. And Rice, he's been superb, hasn't he? And nailed on. So
well, we're approaching the point where I'll ask you all what your starting 11 would be, and which 7 get the cull. And Jamie, I will ask you as well, because you've been kind enough to offer a lot of very, very valid opinions on the England squad. But let's just focus on the attackers. And over the last couple of years, what's become apparent is England all of a sudden are blessed with an unquestionable amount of talented number 10s, or players that can play anywhere sort of just behind that striker. The ones I've put in the list for that position: Sterling, Foden, Grealish, Sancho, Saka. Rashford and Greenwood would be in that list as well, but I've moved them into the striker list for a reason that'll become apparent in a moment. If the tournament had been played a year ago, and Greevesy, I'll ask you your opinion on this first. If the tournament had been played a year ago, Sterling was nailed on. But now, I don't think he's in the squad, and justifiably so, but I don't think Sterling is starting.
No, he wouldn't fit into the system that I would want to play. He would fit in, but he's down the pecking order. No, I don't even. Well, I'd play the same formation that Chelsea are playing at the moment, and I'd have the three at the back with the wing backs, double pivot, 2 attacking midfielders, and a sole striker.
So who plays as your attacking midfielders, though?
I would have Mount and Foden.
And Kane.
Kane, yeah.
The thing is, I great players, but I think what Chelsea have got is, especially with Werner and Havertz to an extent, is blistering pace.
It's also, I'm not adverse to dropping Kane and playing Foden in the false 9. Play Foden as a false 9 and Sancho.
Never,
That's
ever going to happen.
Never going to happen.
Because that's the thing. That could be the step away from we've got to rely on the captain. England should never have a named captain. It should be the person with the most caps on the day. That's why we fall in, and every time they get slated in the press, captain does this, captain does that. Then we end up playing with making our striker our captain.
He is one of England's only world-class players, though, isn't he?
But then we play one up front, and then have him as we had it with Rooney. Rooney was a world-class player, and then when he dipped out of form, he was still England captain and was undroppable. If you don't have a designated captain.
But Kane's not out of form, is he? He's top goal scorer and top assist in the Premier League. That doesn't get that.
So you've answered your own question.
In terms of what? No, your question. Would you drop him?
With Mount, Foden and Kane up front, would it be too slow? And you've just told me all how good Harry Kane is.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be playing that. I wouldn't be playing that formation, though, because I don't think you're going to get the Mount wants to come deep forward and
I think
as well.
The way that Kane is playing now, he drops off a lot deeper, and there'll be a lot of interchange. And I think Mount is an intelligent enough footballer to be able to cope with that interchange. So it would be a rotating front three. And then if you needed pace, you've got Sancho and Sterling on the bench to come in as impacts or on the fly. But they would be my starting front three.
Warren, if I can ask you about the focal point of England's attack, we know it will be Kane. He is the captain. As Jamie said, he's one of, if not the only world-class player in his position. But in the list as well, you've got Calvert-Lewin, Ollie Watkins, and I've put Rashford and Greenwood there. Now, the reason I put them in that one is because in my mind, Calvert-Lewin will go, but if Kane gets injured or suspended, I think Mason Greenwood is a better natural striker than say Rashford, and I think there's a chance he will play up front. What's your thoughts in terms of, we know it will be Kane, what's your thoughts on what's behind him, especially as we can't call upon the likes of Danny Ings?
I think if Kane gets injured, or it doesn't play, and the system that we play where he plays the one at the top end of the pitch, it won't be Greenwood, it won't be Rashford, it will be Calvert-Lewin. It will be Calvert-Lewin, because he plays the mould that he wants this striker to be able to hold the ball, or when we put the ball into the box, he wants someone that's going to challenge. And out of the list of what you've just given, Calvert-Lewin's the only one that does that for his club, alongside Harry Kane, obviously. So in answer to your question, Calvert-Lewin, in my opinion, if Kane gets injured or suspended, he will turn to Calvert-Lewin, unless he changes the system and plays a false nine or you know what I mean, unless he goes. But if he sticks with the way that he does it religiously for England at the moment, if Kane gets injured, it will be Calvert-Lewin, in my opinion. Okay,
and Steve, Jamie, I'll bring you both into the striker conversation. Throughout, I've mentioned the likes of Pope, Wan-Bissaka, Maddison, players who aren't there or aren't available. And before we came on, we mentioned Wilson and we mentioned Bamford. Should either of those have been called up? Steve, I'll let you go with Bamford first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's, and again, I'm trying to talk from a unbiased point of view. Sorry. For me, Mason Greenwood don't get in this squad for me at this present minute. He's played out wide for Man United every time he's played, and he will be. I mean, obviously, he's close to my roots. He's from where I'm from, obviously, and he's, you know, I just think at this present time, he's been played out too wide, too much, and let's be honest as well. If you're going into a big tournament, he's had his issues with other young lads, like with Foden, with the Iceland debacle.
You can't blame him though, can you?
No, one, you can't blame him, but two, Foden, in my opinion as well, Foden has to go. So in a tournament where things are of a higher pressure, I think as little distractions needed as possible. Personally, I would have taken Bamford basically for his goal scoring record and his work rate. Like we said off air, with Watkins. I don't think Watkins will make the final cut anyway, but everything Southgate said about Watkins, Bamford has done better this season. I'm not saying he's better at full stop. But for me, Harry Kane's going to start massively. And I don't want to see Sterling behind him. I don't want to see Rashford behind him. And the one person that hasn't been mentioned yet, as much as I hate him for his play hat-tricks and this and another, I think Grealish is the closest we've got to being, apart from Foden, apologies, he's the most technically gifted player we've got in them front-going positions.
And Jamie, everything that Steve said about Bamford over Watkins, you would argue that Wilson potentially is better than Bamford.
Yeah, again, it's being a Newcastle fan, it's obviously maybe a bit biased, but I think Wally Watkins has had a good season. I think Patrick Bamford's had a great season, but I think if you would switch the teams around and Bamford was on Newcastle's team and Wilson was in Leeds, Wilson scores a lot more goals. I think he's a better finisher. I know Steve's saying about Bamford, obviously he works hard. There's no denying that. You've got to in that Leeds team. But you look at the amount of goals Wilson has scored in an extremely poor Newcastle. Newcastle are like 19th, 20th place for every attacking stat going, shots on goal, possession, all these type of things. And Callum Wilson was probably, along with St. Maximin, the one reason Newcastle stayed in the league. And yeah, for me, he would have been in there. But I don't think Ollie Watkins will go, and I agree Calvert-Lewin will definitely be the backup to Kane if Kane was to get injured.
Right, Jamie, as you're on, I will start with you. What I would like, if you don't mind, of course, is firstly, which 7 of the players we've mentioned do not go, if you can remember everyone you mentioned. And then what would your starting 11 be come game 1?
The 7, I can't remember. I'd say Ramsdale won't go. Do you want to, who would I leave out? Who do I think will get left out?
If you were Southgate, which 7 of the 33 would you leave out?
Ramsdale, Connor Cody, Tyrone Mings. He's had a very good season, but I would say Bukayo Saka, Ollie Watkins. How many is that? 5?
5.
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I can't remember the rest in there.
Okay, what would your starting 11 be? Let's not be stupid because you want us to lose either.
No, it'd be Pickford. I say I'd have a back 4. I would say back 3 because I know that's what Southgate. But if I was playing, I'd have obviously Pickford in goals, Stones and Maguire centre halves, Luke Shaw left back, Kyle Walker right back. I'd have Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham as kind of 2 holding, although they can both get up and down the pitch. And then I would have Grealish, Foden and Sancho behind Harry Kane, because I think you need the players like Sancho. For me, he's got to start because I think Kane will drop deep because that's what he's accustomed to, and he needs that person like Son does, someone who's going to kind of go past him. But I think travelling with the ball, Grealish and Sancho are just the 2 best dribblers in that squad, and they will just take the ball with them and give Foden the room. Mount, although I think he will be a shoe-in, would just miss out for me for Grealish, because I just think Grealish offers that more with the ball, draws a lot more fouls, a lot more, we say cheat, but tactically clever, if we say so. Yeah, that would be my 11.
Okay, Warren, same for you. Let's start with, if you can think of the 7, which 7 would you drop?
Ramsdale for the keeper will miss out. Going back to what I think, or what we think Southgate would do.
Whichever you prefer. I would personally say what you think, but if you want to go with what you think Southgate would do,
I'll go with what I would do. I think he's brought in these players just to give them a taster of what an international squad's like. I think Godfrey will miss out. I think maybe Cody will miss out as well. going into the midfield. I think Saka, as much as I wouldn't want him to, you know, I mean, there's going to be one of the Lingards or the Ward-Prowses maybe that you look at, that one of them's going to miss out. And I've said earlier, I think Ward-Prowse, I think, should be in. And then I would leave. I agree with what Steve said earlier. I think Mason Greenwood, I don't see how he's got anywhere near it, to be perfectly honest with you, with the season that he's had. And he would be one that I would leave out. And how many is that? Am I 6? Am I nearly there?
Yeah, nearly there.
Yeah, I think that's got to be one more. I just can't see him. I agree with Jamie on the Bellingham situation, but I think maybe he could be one that might miss out. He could do, you know what I mean? If he's going to go down the tried and tested route, the Southgate way, I think maybe he might just think this might come a bit too soon for Bellingham, and he might want to see another season from him in his club and see where he goes from there.
Okay, well, for what it's worth, before I ask you, Steve, I've gone with Ramsdale, Cody, White. Slightly controversially, possibly, I've gone Lingard, Henderson, Saka, and Watkins all get dropped for me. My starting 11, Henderson or Pickford, it doesn't really matter, so it'll probably be Pickford. I too have gone with a back 4, Walker, Stones, Maguire, Shaw. I've gone with Rice and Phillips in the middle. Contrary to what the others have said so far, I've gone left to right, Grealish, Foden, Greenwood behind Kane as my choice. Greavesy, let's come to you next. Let's starting with who you think should be dropped.
Right, should be dropped. You've got the bloody Sheffield United goalkeeper. Don't know why we keep calling up goalkeepers who are bloody bottom of the league every single fucking year. English keeper, bottom of the league, relegated, most goals conceded. We'll call him up. Fuck's sake, not worth it. Not when you got bloody Nick Pope and people like that that have international caps.
Pope's injured.
No, I don't care. An injured Pope is better than someone who's conceded 95 goals in the fucking league. All he's done all year is pick the ball out of his own net. But that's by the by. He's gone. Connor Cody and Tyrone Mings, they're gone. Mason Greenwood needs to get on the protein shakes. He's bloody too skinny to play international football. They would eat him alive. He's got to go. Jesse Lingard is going to go. He's brought in as a little pat on the back because he doesn't feature in the plans. He plays exactly the same position as Mason Mount and he won't get in. And one more, I think he's going to be a bit controversial and he'd drop James Ward-Prowse as well.
Wow. And what would your starting 11 be for the first game?
My starting 11, Dean Henderson in goal. Jordan Pickford can fuck off. My centre halves would be, I'd have play 3 at the back. I will have Stones on the left, Maguire in the centre, and Walker on the right-hand side.
Okay.
Wing backs, I'll have Chilwell on the left and Reece James on the right. Double pivot of Declan Rice and Henderson, because if Henderson's anywhere near fit, he's going to play. He should have the captain's armband on instead of Kane, in all honesty. He does more work throughout and is more vocal to an actual game than what Harry Kane is. And no one can actually understand Harry Kane when he speaks. So I don't know how he can motivate a team. And as I said earlier, up front, in the attacking third, I would have Mount and Foden behind Kane. But that is also interchangeable. So you can put in Sterling and Sancho in that 3 as well, depending on. I'm a very big fan of bringing pace off the bench, especially in international games. You get to the last time, you get inside the second half, and you take off Mason Mount and you bring on, take off Mount and Foden, and you bring on Sterling and Sancho. Not many defences international are going to cope with the pressure of them two running at them in the final 30 minutes of the game. So I would exploit their pace. You use players like the old, like how we used to use Aaron Lennon back in the day. You're quick, get on, run at them. Because it used to work though. People laugh. That's how we used to win.
Let's throw Sean Wright Phillips into the mix as well. Let's throw him on with 15 minutes to go.
How quick can you? What's your 100-meter dash? Go on, go. And that would be my squad. It would bore the nuts off of everyone, but we would win 1-0 and get a set piece. Get a corner, win 1-0, go, fuck you, we're not here to entertain.
Finally,
Southgate
Steve,
101.
Steve, finally, your options be dropped and then your starting 11, please.
So yeah, my 7 who dropped Watkins, Greenwood. Ward-Prowse, for me, he does a lot. He does a hell of a lot for Southampton, but it's transferring that anyway.
Not happy. Look at Warren's face. He's not happy that everyone's dropping Ward-Prowse.
I didn't drop him.
So Watkins, Greenwood, Ward-Prowse, Lingard, definitely 100%. Just because he's had a little bit of a few months at West Ham, don't make him a good player, in my opinion. And then
all West Ham fans are now angry.
Yeah, they can be. And then the last 3 are obviously Ramsdale in goal, and who I'd like to see dropped are obviously Mings, as everybody said. And I think when you look at those options, who can play at right wing back, I'd probably say Trippier, because I'd like to see James get there and have a little bit of a chance. The starting 11 would probably be the same as Jamie's, really. I'd like to play forward at back with Shaw, because he's performed in a poorer defensive effort, poorer team at left back. Obviously, and I would again, I'll probably repeat myself here. I'd probably go with Johnston in goal, because I think he's had a good season regardless of West Brom's. I know Greevesy was saying about, peeps that have gone down and conceded loads, but I'd have Johnston, Kyle Walker right back, Shaw left back, Maguire, Stones at this present minute you can't look past them. Henderson, I'd love to see Phillips start, but Phillips all right. I don't think Henderson needs to be there. And then your 3 behind is, for me, I'm not quite sold on Sancho at the minute, so I would go Rashford, Grealish, Foden.
Jamie's not having Rashford at all. Okay.
Garbage.
I'm looking at, I agree, but he's looking at the options, in my opinion. Again, like I said, I'm just not sold on Sancho.
Stay out.
And then Mr. Kane up front. But it's probably because I was at Ellen Road just before World Cup when England beat Costa Rica, and he scored that free kick. It takes a lot for me to put a Man United player in.
You want to take free kicks, so got James Ward-Prowse for that, you had?
No, but Steve's ditched him out of the squad, isn't he?
He's a goner, apparently.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I just think the third of that, I don't think we've got many great choices after. I just think we're the best of a bad bunch. But for me, Foden and Grealish have to start.
I was going to briefly just discuss Group D, obviously England's group, but I'm hoping that a friend of some of ours is coming on at some point if he reads his messages.
Oh, God.
So if we can...
He's got his kilt on, hasn't he?
We'll take a quick look at the other groups. And Jamie, it's ideal for you, really, because Group A is Wales's group, and you've just got the straightforward task of Italy, Switzerland and Turkey.
Easy, innit? Who we playing in the last 16?
How are you rating Wales' chances?
It's gonna be tough, extremely tough, especially Turkey. I think they've been, in the World Cup qualifiers, watched them where they watched them against Norway. Had Haaland, Odegaard, very good side, and they beat them 2-0. Before then, I think they beat Holland 5-3 or something like that. So whereas at the time, before those games, Turkey thought will be the easiest of the 3 games, but they're looking extremely tough. Switzerland are just one of the toughest teams to beat in international football. I think no one ever seems to beat them much. It's not by a lot of goals. You might get the odd 1-0, but you never ever see them get a drubbing. People like Granit Xhaka, Shaqiri, the players at club level who may not really do it. They're just a solid outfit. And Italy probably have got, name-wise, one of their weakest teams over the last 20 years. But the squad, Mancini's got them playing really well, and they could be one of the dark horses, not name-wise. You struggle to name a world-class player from that lot now. But on paper, the team, Mancini's got them gelled well. So it will be a tough group. But it was the same, obviously, in the last Euros. And obviously we managed to get to the semis. Don't think that will quite happen again. But I think we've got as good a chance as, kind of Switzerland and Turkey. I think the first game is obviously going to be vital. You certainly can't afford to lose. But yeah, Gareth Bale, I think, is obviously going to be vital to our chances. I know people will say what they want about, the way he's played for Spurs. It's interesting. You see the stats about Cavani, and Cavani's labelled kind of signing of the season. Gareth Bale is labelled a waste of time, but he's averaging a goal. Well, I think minutes per play, but you think he's number 1 in the Premier League. But it's just the kind of perception, isn't it? He's looked as a flop, and what have Spurs done with Cavani's looked at, kind of the best signing of the season. So it's just kind of perception.
Were there any sort of surprises in the squad for you? I know it's not long been named, so it was named yesterday, I think.
I would say, for what he's done probably in the last Euros and just kind of, being around the camp as an older head, how Robson-Kanu, especially when he was on decent in the last 3 or 4 games for West Brom, he came back into the team. And again, it's not a massive name, but kind of what he did for us in the last Euros. And we got so many youngsters being there. I was surprised. And also Rabbi Matondo at Schalke. I know they kind of got relegated and had a dreadful season, but he was still playing quite a lot for the team in the Bundesliga, whereas we have got people from the Championship, even League One. But I think, as you mentioned with James Maddison earlier, them two, Rabbi Matondo and Hal Robson-Kanu, broke curfew in the last Wales camp. So I think Page has obviously thought, I'm not sure if I can trust them. But I do feel if there was one, it would have been Hal Robson-Kanu, just for what he would have kind of brought to the squad and that kind of, older head around the youngsters, keeping them calm and those type of things. So yeah, he's the one kind of disappointing I see in the squad.
And the last question on Wales, if I can, what for you would represent a successful tournament? Obviously, winning it would be the dream, but I suppose you are a realist. I suppose you're not going into it thinking Wales are going to win it.
No, I think the Ryan Giggs thing has been a massive blow for us. I think whatever you think about Ryan Giggs as a person, I'm not his biggest fan by any stretch. But when he's appointed Wales manager, I was very dubious. He started off not great, but he seemed to kind of have a bit of a Chris Coleman effect. I think he kind of got them together. And I'm not sold on Rob Page coming. They've tried to go with continuity. But I think if Wales were to make it out of the group, that would for me represent a success, because you've got Italy and Switzerland and even Turkey. So I would say making it out of the group stage would be a massive success, because ultimately you look on paper, we are still playing a lot of Championship players, and we will need the likes of Aaron Ramsey and Bale and Dan James, who haven't played a lot for United, but for us he's a bit of a key player. But with the spirit we got, I think it's I am backing us to get out of the group, but I think anything after that then would be a bonus.
Warren, Group B, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, Russia. Obviously, Belgium will go in as one of the favourites for the whole competition. Do you look at it and think Denmark are the other team to qualify from that group, or Russia, in a similar way to what Jamie was saying about Switzerland? They're never perceived as having any world-class players, but they always seem to perform at international tournaments.
I don't know. We beat them 4-0 in the last one. Just saying.
Yeah, Belgium are a shoe-in to win the group. The other three, it could be, it all comes down, like we just said there. Russia are just they just seem to play as a unit, don't they? Whether it was all about the fans at the last tournament, they had that driving force behind them that was massive, and it carried them through the tournament as far as they could go. That's probably the thing. Denmark are probably the most solid option of the three to get the second place for that group. Finland are not a bad side either. Do you know what I mean? When they've got Pukki who scores goals, do you know what I mean? And they seem to be set up very defensively and they nick goals. But you go back to some of the Nations League game and the Euros groups and stuff. They're not a bad side. They're no mugs. Do you know what I mean?
They're good against Wales.
Yeah, they're not a bad side, and they might not come bottom of that group. Do you know what I mean? So if you were to put a gun to my head, I'd probably say Denmark would probably be the most solid option to finish second, but I don't think that's definitely not a shoe-in. Russia or Finland could cause problems in that group.
I don't know your thoughts on it, Warren, but Jamie was saying with regards to the Wales squad, the likes of Bale, Ramsey, they're going to obviously be integral to any success they have. Kasper Schmeichel, there's a long conversation about does he get the respect he deserves for what he's achieved and how good he is. If he's not getting that respect, which I think a lot of people recognise him as one of the better keepers in the Premier League, but perhaps, there was a conversation, especially after the FA Cup final, is he actually one of the better keepers in Europe? Is this the tournament where he can really make that point?
I rate Kasper Schmeichel really highly. I think he's a top keeper. I went to the FA Cup game against Chelsea and a couple of the saves that he pulled off were unbelievable saves. And then he's not just that now. He's at that age where he's an absolute born leader and he follows in his footsteps of his dad. And you know what I mean? I think he is top draw. And he could, if this is he's getting to that age now where probably the Euros and probably the next World Cup next year is going to be his two tournaments where he's going to have to put and go for it. And they're a solid side, Denmark, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They've got some good players, whether Eriksen steps up again, you know what I mean? And that's the other one when you look at the two players for them, you look at Schmeichel, you look at Eriksen, but they've got to have tournaments of their lives, haven't they, to get anywhere close. They get out the group, maybe, like we said, they're the solidest option to get out, and Kasper could take them further with regards to his leadership, but no, not for me. You can't win a tournament with just one or two people. It's a collective, isn't it? Or even getting into the quarters or the semis, it's a collective group. And he'll take them as far as they can, but no, not for me.
Steve, Group C sees Austria, Holland, Northern Macedonia, and Ukraine. Austria are Holland. Sorry, Holland will be the top seed in that group, and I imagine you'll be looking at them as the team to qualify. And then, is it any one of the three again?
Yeah, I mean, the rest of them are difficult, aren't they? In terms of, consistently being up there. But I mean, a couple of them have done really well. I mean, obviously with Macedonia, we've got Alioski that plays for Leeds, who's going to be probably going to be one of their key players. But yeah, I mean, Holland are obviously going to blitz the group, but I just genuinely think there's too much what ifs and buts with the three behind to be able to call it, really, because they've all got a couple of solid players here and there, but if they click, they could quite easily, and then it's one of them as well. You wouldn't be surprised. Tournament football for some of these perceived lesser players, as we've seen in previous tournaments regularly, turn Holland over.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Holland could struggle in that group. I agree. They are obviously favourites, but the other three are all kind of those weird teams like North Macedonia just beat Germany away 2-1. And I don't think Holland are glittered with the stars that they've got. I watched them say against Turkey and they got taken apart by Turkey. So although you would fancy them to be winners, you also wouldn't be surprised if they came unstuck against a couple of those teams.
No, definitely. And I think Holland, more so than a lot of the perceived better countries, have been there. They got it for quite a few years now, after losing quite a lot of good players. So
and no Van Dijk.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's more pressure on them than the other three teams in the group. In honesty, I genuinely looked at it when it was first drawn, and I thought, you know what, that could be the most interesting group.
Yeah.
Holland, they love having the underdog tag, don't they? Really, going against better teams and having that underdog. When it's on them, I think they could struggle. Really do. Yeah.
Point to that. Yeah.
Well, Greavesy, if Group C is difficult to gauge who's going to finish second, in theory, Group E looks very difficult to call at all. Poland, Slovakia, Spain, and Sweden. It wouldn't surprise me, and obviously there was a bit of a group chat going on before this recording, if Spain didn't even qualify.
I said that to you in the group chat. I think Luis Enrique has been very naive with leaving out every single Real Madrid player. Calling up Eric Garcia because he's signed a contract with Barcelona and played 8 times for Man City, and then saying Sergio Ramos hasn't played a lot of football since Christmas is ridiculous.
I mean, I'm a massive Ramos fan, personally.
But he
doesn't play. He has to go just for his presence in the squad. You know,
leadership is unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every successful team in football has an arsehole. And he is that arsehole. You put them in your squad and they do the dirty work. They do the stuff that no one else wants to do, and they're first one there. He would take a bullet for Spain to win that European Championship.
Yeah.
There's not many of that Spanish team. Yes, they've got Laporta's declared for Spain now, and he's been called up, and he's an excellent. Could you imagine Ramos and Laporta at centre half together?
Yeah.
Nothing's getting past them. But other than Laporta now, I don't think they haven't got a defence, and they haven't got an attack. It's the first Spain attack. Gerard Moreno, who scored against Manchester United in the Europa final, he's got to be their only out-and-out goal scorer, and that's got to be worrying for the Spanish
side as well, isn't it? But it's
but he's not an out-and-out. He's sat on the bench all season.
Yeah, no, I know.
He's left out he's left out Spanish players that have been playing.
Yeah.
He left Iago Aspas. I know he flopped at Liverpool, but he's been amazing for Celta Vigo this season.
Yeah. Yes. The
superstar, and he's left him at home as well.
The superstar of the Spain squad is Pedri for Barcelona. He's he's there, Phil Foden.
That says it all, really.
No, he's unbelievable. He's going to be worthy. He's there, Phil Foden. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, but he's 18, isn't he? And he only got his chance because of injuries. Barcelona have stumbled upon him.
Yeah, no, he's different.
He's too young to rest everyone. It's like us saying, right, Phil Foden starting centre midfield and he's our best player. And it's not going to happen.
Well, he probably is. Other than Kane, Foden is, isn't he? Other than Kane, Foden is. When you play for these big players, Barcelona, I don't think you feel the pressure. I don't think it's. These kids have got nothing to lose, have they? It's not like their last tournament. He'll be in there, excited to be there. They love it.
In all fairness, you've got 5 teams to play in Spain, and that's it. The rest are there to roll over and have the bellies tickled.
Well, I don't know. The 7th place team in Spain beat the 2nd in the Premier League.
Well, but they're not going to have when they come up against the Polish defenders. Well, the Polish midfielders are going to leave the foot in. And they are. And Pedri's going to wonder what's going on. And the rest are there going to go, where's Ramos to help us? And he's not going to be there.
Well, I mean...
I don't think there's any fight in that Spanish side. That's why I think they're going to go out in the group stage.
To back up your point, and I know you're not in that situation, but if you were a Spanish fan, and you were coming up against, say, Lewandowski, would you be happier with Ramos in the team or not in the team?
You'd want him in the team. Would you
There's not an international squad, any squad that's been picked in the Euros that wouldn't pick Sergio Ramos.
No.
Even if he wasn't a guaranteed starter, I think is just his passion, his desire. You know, people go on about he has got dirty tags, but let's not, you know, this is a serial winner. This is a guy who pops up in big moments, who scores massive goals for Real Madrid. This isn't a guy who just goes on and kicks people. He is a gifted player.
It's the experience he has as well. He's been playing at this level since he was 17 years old.
Warren, if I can, one final point on that. If he was English, does Ramos get in the England squad?
Yes.
On footballing ability, Ramos gets in. I can't stand Ramos, but that's because I think as an Englishman, we look at him and we think, oh, that's, you know what I mean? And you look at him and you think, oh, but if you have him in your team or in your country, you love him, don't you?
Oh, he's a god.
You absolutely adore him. But I just can't get past the point that being English, that I look at him and I think, I can't stand Sergio Ramos. I think he's a wind-up. He is, but I agree with every single point that the other three have made. He is a born leader, and he should be in that Spain, not just in the squad. He should be in the Spain starting lineup. So he should be captain. Yeah,
born leader, serial winner. So to bring it back, then Greevesy, Poland, Slovakia, Spain, Sweden. Who are you expecting to qualify from that group?
Poland will finish top, and I think Sweden will squeak through. Sweden always do well in the group stages, and I think Spain will flounder.
Looks like it's back to you, Jamie, for Group F. And if Greevesy had it tough, yours isn't much easier, because Group F is France, Germany, Hungary, and Portugal. At least one big name country is going out there.
Even Hungary are a good side, you know, they're not whipping boys, do you know what I mean? To be a fourth seed in that group is just unreal. I think for me, the two that will go through, not trying to beat around the bush, will be France and Portugal. I think.
Oh, you think Germany will go out?
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of Germany. I think they've stuck with Joachim Löw for way too long. And I just think France, for me, are the favourites to win it. And then I look at Portugal's team, and I just think the likes of Ronaldo, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, Ruben Diaz. I just think they've got more attacking talent than Germany. I think the likes of Timo Werner, Leroy Sané, they're not in great form club sides. Havertz has done all right at the end of the season. But defensively, Germany are far from what they used to be. And you look at Portugal, I just think, they've got quality. Cancelo, Ruben Neves, these type of players. But at the top end of the pitch with Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, these type of boys, I just think they'll have too much for Germany.
So Jamie's already sort of said that France are favourites. I was hoping that we would have someone coming on to discuss England v Scotland, but he seems to have bottled it at the final moment. So
shocker.
Are we surprised?
We'll go back to Group D just at the end. But so Jamie's gone France. Warren, who, if not England, are you saying will win it?
France is the most solid option, isn't it? I think there's always Belgium are going to be there or thereabouts, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They're going to get through their group. I don't know what their route through is going to look like. Going for the route through, I think England need to finish second. But you know what I mean? If we were looking at that, I know that's not the way to look at it sometimes, but you look at the route and you think, oh my God, that seems weird. But yeah, Belgium are a solid option. But every tournament, there's always going to be this one team that no one's even had a look at, and there's going to be one that's going to fly through to the quarters, and the wave will carry on going, won't it? I want to try and give you one at a bit of a price because I'm just a gambling man, but Portugal, like
Portugal,
Jamie said, I think they've got the top players at the top end of the pitch. They've got experience at the back with Pepe. They could be one to frighten a few, but I do concern their group. I think that is a tough group, and the Germans, even though we write them off, you write them off at your peril, don't you? They always seem to be there, and that is the group. Whoever gets out of that group will have a massive chance to win the tournament, I think.
Steve?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Warren said there, you know, in terms of it's difficult to pinpoint it. Again, it's all dependent on groups, and it's all the groups going the way everybody expects. I don't think Spain will be as bad as previously said. But just a quick something that might put something out there, because it's talking about, does everybody think, you're looking at the standard of teams, standard of player, do we think this year, looking at the standard of all the teams, it's as good as it's been in previous Euros?
For me, it's difficult, because if you say go back, I don't know, 10, 15 years, something like that, or basically to the early part of the year 2000s even. Even if you look at, I would say on paper, obviously England had their golden generation that achieved nothing. My personal feel is this England squad is better as a team unit and is more likely to achieve something. And to the same end, I think France, for example, going from the late 90s when they obviously won the World Cup into the early 2000s, they were really good. They sort of went off the boil a bit. I think they're firmly back now. Obviously, Pogba always turns it on for France that he doesn't for Man United. Kante is probably without question the best midfielder in the world at the moment. Although, and thankfully he's not in the Euros, I'm a massive fan of Casemiro. I really like him. Obviously, Italy, you look at Italy and they don't have Buffon, they don't have Maldini, they don't have Pirlo, you know, they don't have these players anymore. But again, I still think that there is more than enough talent in that squad to be dangerous. Same with Holland. They disappeared for a long time, but they seem to be very much on the way back now. So I don't think it has the same star power as perhaps earlier years, but I do think that we will see as much drama and as much quality as we've seen before. I think what it is now is you've got the elite players, and there's so many more creeping up to that level that it doesn't seem as high anymore. And I think for me, that's personally the answer to that question.
Yeah, it was just one of them, because
I agree with you, Steve. I do.
I think the standard of sport in general, and I'm not going away from it, the standard of sport in general over the last 10 years has declined, in my opinion. And so when you're coming on in, and it's hard to talk about players that you think, it's hard for lads of our age, when you're looking at players, like we're talking about this England team, we're talking about the Holland team, Italy, to not compare it to players you've seen in previous years and the quality you've seen in previous years. And I do think there's a certain amount of these players. Phil Foden, for me, is an example of he would have been playing at 15, 20 years ago. He'd have had 20 England caps by the time he was 19, but it's one of them. But in general, yeah, I don't think, for me, I think if England get to semis, I think we've done very well, personally. It's hard to look past France, but I agree with Warren. I think Germany are a bit of a dark horse with it again.
Greevesy?
Yeah, you got France are favourites. Then I think it's gonna be a France and Germany final. You can't write off the Germans in knockout football. Italy have got a very strong side. I really like the Italians. They've got Ciro Immobile scored goals, and it's got the Italian way of playing. So it doesn't matter how flamboyant Mancini wants to be, they will always be shit houses. So they've got a strong chance. We've got as good a chance as any, but I do think those three are in front of us in the pecking order. Belgium have got a very good side, but it's like the Swindon Devils. They've got Roberto Mancini in charge.
Belgium's not what they used to be, though. I think this is the first
they've got a fantastic squad with all the best players, but Roberto Mancini's in charge. The one who said that Aidan McGeady is a world-class player. And those are his words.
Just before we finish, as our Scottish correspondent has clearly decided to bottle it, let's just have a quick look at Group D if I can. Croatia, Czech Republic, and obviously Scotland. We all expecting England to qualify, and if so, are we expecting them to qualify in first?
Yeah.
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 No.
And now, is that no because you don't think we will, or no because you think Southgate will engineer it to finish second? Because as Warren alluded to, it might be better.
We are England. We have Southgate in charge. We will draw the first game. So he will sort out. He would rather take a draw. He's like me, rather take a draw than a loss. So he would play it safe, draw, may even draw against Scotland. Well, he'll draw and then we'll go up in second place.
Might not be a bad thing.
What do we rate as Scotland's chances of qualifying? Do we give them much hope?
Yeah, they've got a chance, haven't they? The other two teams aren't, they're not spectacular. I think Croatia, again, far from the team they used to be. No Rakitic anymore. Modric is, I know he's still quality, but they're far from the team they used to be. So I think Scotland have got a chance.
They got a chance because I like Steve Clarke, the manager. I think he's always been a good coach. I think he's always been very solid. He's worked with some of the best managers and he brings players on, and that's what Scotland needs, someone like that to do, to bring them forward. The last time we said Croatia were on the decline, I can't remember when we said that. It was the semi-final, wasn't it? And we were all, I was one of those going, oh, we should beat Croatia surely. But like you say, Modric is another couple of years older. The likes of Rakitic has declined massively, haven't they? And Mandzukic has declined. So, and Czech Republic, I just can't say I know much of as much as. So Scotland have got a good enough chance, definitely. I feel
they're set up. Obviously, I watch a bit of Scotland. Basically, I watch them if they're not on the same time as England, and they're set up very rigidly defensively. They're a very well organised team. They've got players obviously like Scott McTominay in there, who I think is slightly underrated. I do think he's a decent player. Obviously, they've got the two left backs, Robertson and Tierney, thank you, who are obviously quality players. We all know that.
John McGinn.
Yeah, McGinn is a player I rate a lot. Scoring goals is potentially their problem. Lyndon Dykes likely to be the main striker, although Che Adams is now Scottish apparently. He's there as well. It wouldn't surprise me if they did qualify, and I don't know if any of you know. I'll be honest, I didn't check. Have they got any games at Hampden? Because that'll be massive if they do.
Yeah, I'm not
They should be
sure.
allowed to play at home, should they? They're not hosting.
Why England are playing at Wembley?
Well, we're hosting.
Hampden is one of the host grounds, I believe.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not in a nation, innit? So don't count.
I think Jamie's just checking that for me. One thing I will say, and Steve, I'll bring you in at this point, is the last couple of weeks has been great seeing.
Yeah, their first games at Hampden against the Czech Republic.
they've got both of the only game they haven't got in Hampden is the England game. So the other two is in Hampden.
See, and this leads into my next point. And Steve, I'll offer it up to you first, as I say. The last couple of weeks generally have been great seeing fans back. Now, unfortunately, when Scotland come to Wembley, there will be fans there, but it won't be allowed to be full yet. But if they've got two games at Hampden, having some fans there
Massive.
could really help them. It'll be massive, won't it? Because for what some of you will mock about the Scottish, they are incredibly passionate.
Yeah, I think the main thing is with this COVID and allowing fans in, it's all to do with proportionate of your stadium, isn't it? So if they can have X amount there and they get X amount of percentage in, do you know what? They will, for me, I genuinely believe they will qualify from their group. The way that they all seem, I mean, like the English, you know, we're looking forward to that and we want to be in tenfold. But if you did not love when they qualified, all them videos of the songs and everything after, do you know what I mean? It were fantastic to see from their point of view, as we all know, Scottish people in terms of what we're involved with, and outside of that as well. A very good friend of mine, he's Scottish, and you know, and it's like you sort of not to the detriment of England, but want them to do well because of, you know, the torrid time they've been through, and obviously 98, France 98 were the last time they were. I don't know why I'm turning around pointing to France 98.
Just pointing for history.
Sorry, for anybody watching. But, you know, obviously, last time they've been in a major tournament, and they've got a group of lads fighting for the manager that's done very well, in fairness, at clubs he's been at as well. He's Scottish himself, he's got the pride of it in, and I may be a minority. I want to see him do well, apart from against England, because, like I say, because we know people, and I do think they'll get out of the group. Genuinely do.
Being a Hampden is massive.
Yeah,
I agree. I think the fact that their 2 games are at Hampden is huge. I thought they might have one. I wasn't sure on the second. But yeah, that's huge for them. Greevesy, as an occasion, it's almost like, you know, essentially it's a local derby game, isn't it? The atmosphere will be good going into that game.
Yeah, it would be. Is what you need to kick things up a gear. It's like that, the home nations, isn't it? It's what you need. I'd be a fan of being off the bloody.
It'll be a poor game, though. I think it'll be like when Wales played England and Wales played Northern Ireland in the Euros last time. The atmosphere was electric and outside, but the games itself, I think, there's so much riding on it, and neither country wants to get beat. I just think the game itself will be dull.
Slightly. The major problem with English football is we aren't efficient enough, and we won't turn the knife like what a German. If we play, say, San Marino, we win 3-0 and we stop. Germany plays San Marino, they beat them 13-0, and they go, right, this is our pitch, you fucking earn your right to play on it. We are too nice of a footballing nation.
But they pick attacking teams, don't they? Like, again, no disrespect to those 3 teams, but in the group, if you're playing 3 at the back with 2 holding midfielders against those sides, for me, there's no other country in the world, only Southgate would be doing that, because against those 3, and instead if you're playing France or Germany, but if you're playing, you know, those 3 teams.
He'll play it like that to ball the game and win 1-0, to get through the groups and stay in a fluid system for when it gets to the knockout rounds.
No, I agree with you. It's what he'll do. But again, when you're playing at Wembley as well, so you got home advantage, and you're playing 3 centre halves and 2 holding midfield players.
We know that's what he's going to do.
No, I agree. But again, that just shows with all the attacking talent, you know, you're playing those 2 teams, and I think you're almost making it easier for those teams. If you play in Scotland now, when you say, right, we're playing 3 centre halves, and then we got Henderson and Rice, and then you've got the wing backs, so you're only playing them Mount, Foden, and say Kane, like you said earlier. Or if you say to Scotland, right, we're playing 4 at the back, and then we've got Grealish, Sancho, Mount behind Kane. You know, that's striking fear into them. Whereas if you Scotland manager, you say, right, they've got 3 centre halves, these 2 holding midfield players, they've only got Mount and Foden behind Kane. Let's keep Mount and Foden quiet. Kane is going to be limited supply. I think it's quite easy to nullify that. And I think if I was a Scotland manager, I'd be looking at thinking, oh, he's picked a blinder today.
Just a side note question linked into what you're saying, and Jamie, it'll have an effect with you as well. I was never, sadly, I wasn't brought up with the home nations as such. You know, it stopped before I got into football, but since I've really understood football, I've wished that instead of, and I know the Nations League is in the way as well now, but instead of these international friendlies against countries we're not interested in, I would much rather England had friendlies with Scotland, with Wales, Northern Ireland, Do you not think that would be better preparation? Because particularly England use it as a chance to blood through new players ready for qualifications and then tournaments. It would be better than coming up against the like of Scotland and Wales than it would be, no disrespect to these countries, but I don't know, Macedonia, people like that, San Marino.
Yeah. I think the Nations League has made it better. I think the more quality sides are playing, the more quality sides. So like England will play the top 3 teams, you know, in the group, or the 3 teams, so they play top 2. So I definitely think the Nations League, whatever people think about it, and we probably do play too much international football, I do think the Nations League has improved the quality, because when was the last time, you know, I know in World Cup qualifiers, unfortunately, you're always going to have that one team like a San Marino, because you've got groups of 6, so you've got to have a, you know, a bottom seed. But mostly with the Nations League and things, you're kind of staying away from those games. They are very limited. So I think the Nations League for international football has been pretty decent. It does make it, you know, when England lost in the semi-final, I think it was last time, you know, it does make it interesting when you go into the semi-finals and finals if you're winning a trophy. But it is a lot better than playing these friendlies, where, as I say, you just play 2 bum teams, just blood these youngsters or whatever, and it's just a complete and utter waste of time. So I do like the Nations League from that point of view.
Gents, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you join me for this. Thank you very much for taking time out your bank holiday Monday to talk about the Euros. I might look to get a group together again to do maybe the England-Scotland game as a specific thing, maybe after all the first round games have kicked off. But again, thank you very much. Jamie, good luck
After
to Wales.
Marcus Rashford shouts to you, won't be invited for the next one.
Jamie, good luck to Wales.
Cheers, mate. Cheers.
And to the other 3, obviously we'll be back in England to go as far as possible, except for Greevesy, who I think has a sneaky feeling that if we do really badly, Southgate can walk and maybe get someone else in. I think that would please him.
No, I quite like the F man. There's no drama. He plays the way I'd play. So
Warren, Steve, thank you as well. Thank you very much.
Cheers, chaps.
Until next time, see you later.
See ya.
Yeah.